4 years ago, I received a LinkedIn message that changed my career dramatically. It was from the CEO of a travel nurse staffing company, and she was looking for digital media help. Not knowing anything about healthcare staffing, I assumed I would be incompetent, and I ignored it. But she persisted. And the truth is, I was looking for a change. As Jeff said, I had been with the National Football League and the US Olympic Committee, and I'd been to Super Bowls and Olympics, and I'd been to the White House, and I met my idol, Mary Lou Retton. I had been hugged by Ryan Lochte. I was really having a great time, but I was exhausted. And if anyone has ever worked in sports and entertainment, you know that it's relentless. And I really wanted my nights and weekends back, so I was open-minded and I met with her. And as she started telling me about the company, I started to get really interested. So Fastaff Travel Nursing places high acuity nurses in urgent and crucial situations nationwide. They're travel nurses. They go for short-term, high-paying assignments. And these are the highest acuity nurses in the country. ICU, ER, OR, labor and delivery, pediatrics, cardiology, and they go into situations like hurricanes and strikes and flu outbreaks and pandemics. So I started thinking about that and all the different ways you could use digital media to connect these nurses, get them traveled, and get them on these assignments really quickly. And I was back in my comfort zone in digital media. So as I thought about leaving this career in this industry that I had been very comfortable and really had a passion about, I started thinking to myself, Fastaff places the highest acuity nurses, gets people jobs, and gets critical healthcare where it is desperately needed. I can get passionate about that. So I overcame the fear of incompetence and I made the leap and I joined an industry I knew nothing about. And at the time it was really interesting. 4 years ago, the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion had just insured 20 million more people. And people were starting to show up in hospitals. And at the same time, the baby boomer generation of nurses was starting to retire faster than they ever had. And along with them went the experience. So it wasn't just a nursing shortage, it was actually an experience shortage. At the same time that more patients were coming in the hospital, there were less nurses in the workforce. And that started a shortage that is compounding today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics anticipates a need for 15% more nurses every year for the next decade. And only 4% more are coming out of nursing school. That's a 200,000 nurse shortage every year for the next decade. Yikes. Not only that, but 37% of nursing schools say they don't have enough faculty or facilities to reach that demand and make up the gap. So again, think about the situation. We're in a hyper-competitive market, 800 travel nurse staffing companies all vying for the same valuable talent, and an entire gig workforce. These travel nurses take these short-term, high-paying assignments on their own terms, and they're all looking online and on mobile apps to find jobs. So I was thinking, in order for us to break through, we've got to have an digital industry-leading experience for our nurses. So I came to Fastaff, and the first thing I did when you go into an industry you know nothing about, I started studying the marketing data. And very quickly I found I had a challenge. As a decision maker and a leader in the organization, I was lacking two pieces of information that I needed to make smart decisions. Number one, there was all this great surface data on the KPI on every platform. What are our email open clicks? What are our website visits? How many likes did we get on the Facebook post? However, no one could tell me which campaign actually led to revenue, which for our company means a nurse taking a job and going on assignment. So that was a big blind spot for me. I didn't know which of the investments was actually leading to revenue. And then because of that lack of visibility, I didn't know what was the required investment to meet these goals that our board and our ownership had set for us over the long run. So with that blind spot, I started thinking, we're marketing, but we're not revenue marketing, meaning we didn't track the lead all the way through to the revenue. And because of that blind spot, you can't make long-term strategic decisions. Not only that, but in some instances, we were in a chase position, meaning that we'd get a really urgent order, but it was maybe a state or a specialty we hadn't anticipated, and we were trying to come from behind to catch up. But our clients are in crisis mode. They need these nurses in 10 days or less, so there was no time for that. So what I needed to do 4 years ago was put in a disciplined, data-driven approach where we could track the lead all the way through to revenue. So here are the 3 steps that we took. Number 1, we needed buy-in. The CEO needs to know that the investment we're making in the marketing technology and the people and the advertising dollars was going to be on pace to hit that pipeline that we needed to hit to grow at the right pace. Fastaff, despite our challenges, Fastaff is a very successful company that has owned this unique market position for over 30 years, 10 days or less. Nobody else in the industry can do this. So I also needed to get the CFO on board. He needed to understand how big is this investment and how long does it take before you start seeing revenue. That's an important piece for your finance team. And then the third person, the most critical relationship for me personally, was the head of IT, the chief technology officer. All of those integrated systems that track your lead through, all of your digital advertising, all of your data points, there's so much API that flows back and forth and it doesn't always go smoothly. So he and I needed to work together well, and we also needed to make sure we were building the stack that would scale for the growth we needed. The next thing we did was we started integrating all the technology. The company had brought in Eloqua, and the Pedowitz Group was our partner for the implementation. Very quickly, and because I did not know what I was doing, we got Jeff and retained his company, and we used them for strategy, for execution. We used them for knowledge transfer and training. They even screened a couple of my Eloqua candidates for me to make sure that they had the right knowledge base. And then I doubled the size of my department, and we invested in digital media talent and training and certifications, which, by the way, that's not cheap, but you have to do it because we were creating a culture of accountability. We follow 2 principles in the department now that I've got everybody repeating back to me, which I love. It's like when children say something back to you, you're like, oh, it's stuck. And the first one is track and report. Don't launch a campaign you can't track. You won't know if your money was well spent. And number 2, be the subject matter expert. If you're the person on my team responsible for social media advertising, you need to know where to keep up with all those Facebook algorithm changes every week. And if you're the person on my team responsible for text messaging, you really need to know the data privacy compliance, especially in California, which is completely bizarre. So these were the 2 guiding principles. Once that was in place, we started measuring our results. Now we could actually track the leads from lead all the way through to completion. And this was really important because we had to judge and evaluate the quality of the leads. And what we found as we really started looking at them is that, as you know, in lead generation, you have to bring in a lot of people before you understand what's your best quality lead. One of our leads under nursing experience, he had listed pizza delivery, not qualified. But also, at times, it would prove to be really successful for us. In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey hit the Southwest, we had a content mention on a partner's website that drove 800 leads to us saying, I want to help, I want to help. These were high acuity nurses all over the country who said, what can I do to help? And when a hospital in Houston reached out to us, they needed 46 NICU nurses for a level 3 trauma facility immediately. They were facing a shortage. NICU is neonatal ICU. These are like tiny little Texan babies, and they didn't have enough nurses. Because we had brought those leads in, we were able to put those nurses on a plane to Dallas, a bus to Houston, and then a National Guard helicopter landed them on the roof of the hospital because the roads were washed out. We finally knew how to do this in a way that would make us live up to the responsiveness that our clients needed, and all those nurses were there within 24 or 48 hours providing care. Real-time data gives you the results you need to empower your freedom. Once we understood our parameters, once we knew where the good money was being spent, you could be wildly creative. Every member of my team is empowered to be creative within their allotted budget. So if that social media person comes to me, if that text messaging person comes to me, I say the same thing. I say spend recklessly within reason. When they come to me with a well thought out campaign and they want to try it, I say try it until you get the critical mass of data that tells you whether or not your campaign was successful. If so, double down, keep going, good for you. If not, try something different, A/B test. The other thing that was important for us as we started getting this visibility is we understood what it took to grow in the areas that we needed to grow most. We had you have to cast a wide net, but we couldn't bring everybody. You can't bring in everybody, so we had to really look at where we needed to grow the most. And for us, 10 days or less, highest acuities, we needed that wide net, but we really only needed the deep bench in certain specialties, so we could start putting our money in the right place in those areas. One thing I wanted to talk about is that you don't always do it instantly. We also received an order from New Jersey a couple months ago, and we were able to fill that order for 150 nurses literally in less than a week. But 2 years ago, we could not fill orders in New Jersey. We were just historically bad at it. We went on a 2-year campaign where we targeted New Jersey digitally for 2 straight years and just slowly brought in that supply. And a couple months ago, everybody's high-fiving each other. Oh my God, we filled that order in a week, how amazing. But really it took 2 years of really disciplined growth. In the 4 years since we have implemented this digital, data-driven philosophy, we have doubled the size of the database, and we're spending 1/3 of the budget. We've lowered the cost per lead by 68%, and we're measuring our ROI for the first time, which on the low end can be about 8%, and on the high end can be 16% or higher, depending on how many jobs that nurse takes with us. And finally, the most important thing is we understand that long-term investment needed to pipeline for later. Yes, we have the infrastructure to be immediately responsive now, but we also understand that long-term pipelining for supply. This year, our board gave us approved, I asked, they approved, we got a 38% increase in our acquisition budget, which is pretty significant. And because we're applying all of this digital tracking, the revenue marketing, the lead, all the way through to the ROI, we're already on pace to outpace that investment. So we're really excited about that. One last story. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we were actively recruiting for a strike in Northern California, a very large facility, a very large hospital system in Northern California with 26 facilities. The nurses were threatening a strike. So for a few months, we were bringing in California nurses through acquisition, Google paid search, social, email marketing, et cetera. And in the midst of that, we received an urgent request from a children's hospital in Southern California. They were experiencing a critically low shortage of nurses who had experience in pediatric cardiovascular. Whoa. Because we were able to track the digital body language of that entire group of California nurses we had been bringing in, we had the recruiters call the ones who were the most active, the ones that showed a digital body footprint through Eloqua on our website and in our email marketing. And by calling that list of nurses who had pediatric cardiovascular experience, we were able to fill that position in 24 hours. We were so proud of ourselves in that situation. Most of all, we weren't trying to catch up from behind. We were ahead of it, we were pipelining, and we maintained that competitive advantage in rapid response, where we're the only company who can do this in 10 days or less. Last summer, Forbes said that 39% of marketers say tracking their ROI and proving it is their hardest business challenge. We can, and we all can, using this disciplined, digital, data-driven approach. All of us can prove that ROI. And for us, the business intelligence we get allows us to be creative and try new things and solve complicated challenges and see those immediate results. And as hospital orders continue to come in, we are capitalizing on every opportunity and we are filling important needs. And in the midst of this nursing shortage, we can be part of the solution. Thank you.